The message came on a cold morning in January. It traveled across 17 light-years of empty space before reaching Earth's communication station. Ambassador Linda Morrison read it 5 times before she believed what she was seeing. After 20 years of complete silence, the Galactic Concord had finally decided to talk to humanity. Linda sat in her office high above the city of Geneva. Through the window, she could see snow falling on the old buildings below. Somewhere out there, among the stars, 47 alien species had built a civilization that made humanity look like children playing with toys. And now, for reasons she did not understand, they wanted to meet. Admiral Kevin Price arrived within the hour. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire career building humanity's small fleet of warships, knowing they would be useless against any real galactic power. Now he stood before Linda's desk and read the message himself. "They ignored us for 20 years, he said slowly. "They watched us struggle and build and die in space. They never offered help. They never even said hello. And now they want to negotiate?" Linda nodded. "The message says they are offering associate membership in the Concord. Trade rights. Technology sharing. Protection under galactic law. What do they want in return? That is what worries me. The message does not say." The next few weeks were chaos. Earth's governments argued about who should go to the meeting. Scientists demanded to be included. Military leaders wanted to send warships as escorts. Religious figures claimed the aliens were either angels or demons. Depending on who was talking, in the end, Linda was chosen to lead a team of 12 people. They would travel to a place called the Gathering Hall, a massive space station in neutral territory. There, they would meet representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy. The ship that carried them was called the Constellation. It was humanity's finest vessel, but Linda knew it would look like a toy compared to what they would find. She spent the 3-week journey studying everything humanity knew about the Concord species. The Velthari were insects. They had achieved space travel when humans were still living in caves. They considered themselves the wisest species in the galaxy, and most other species agreed with them. The Kasani were fish-like creatures who had turned trading into an art form. They controlled most of the galaxy's economy. The Dravani were warriors, tall and covered in scales that changed color with their moods. They had not fought a real war in 6,000 years, but they still trained as if one might start tomorrow. None of these species had ever encountered anything quite like humanity. When the Constellation arrived at the Gathering Hall, Linda felt her breath catch in her throat. The station was enormous, larger than some moons. Ships of every size and shape moved around it like insects around a hive. Through the viewports, she could see structures that seemed to defy physics. Buildings that floated without support. Lights that pulsed in patterns she could not understand. The docking process took 2 hours. When the doors finally opened, Linda led her team into a corridor filled with aliens. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others crawled or floated or moved in ways she could not describe. Most ignored the human delegation completely. A few stared with what might have been curiosity or disgust. A Velthari official met them at the end of the corridor. He was taller than Linda expected, with a hard shell covering his body and large eyes that reflected the light in strange ways. When he spoke, a device on his chest translated his clicking sounds into English. "Welcome to the Gathering Hall, humans. The Concord is pleased that you accepted our invitation. We have much to discuss about your future in our community." Linda noticed how he said your future instead of our future together. It was a small thing, but it worried her. "We are honored to be here," she said carefully. "Humanity is eager to learn about the galaxy and find our place among the stars." The Velthari made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, we are quite certain that you will find your place. The Concord has already given much thought to where you belong." He led them through the station to their quarters. The rooms were comfortable enough, designed for species with 2 arms and 2 legs. But Linda could not shake the feeling that she was being watched. Hidden cameras, perhaps? Or simply the weight of 47 civilizations paying attention to the newcomers. That night, she gathered her team for a private meeting. Commander Daniel Hayes was her military advisor. quiet man who noticed things others missed. Dr. Richard Cole studied alien psychology and had spent years trying to understand how non-human minds worked. Technical specialist Karen Young knew more about alien technology than anyone on Earth, even though she had only studied it from a distance. "Something is wrong," Linda said. "They did not contact us for 20 years. Now suddenly they want us to join their community. Why?" Richard leaned forward. "I have been reading the cultural data we collected during the journey. The Concord species are old, very old. They change slowly, think slowly, plan in centuries instead of years. For them to act this quickly means something has frightened them." "Frightened them?" Kevin asked. "What could frighten a civilization that has existed for thousands of years?" "Us," Karen said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Think about it. The Velthari took 5,000 years to develop space travel. The Kasani took 3,000. The Dravani took nearly 4,000. Do you know how long it took humanity?" "About 150 years, Daniel said. From the first airplane to colonies on Mars, and we did it while fighting 2 world wars, surviving a global pandemic, and nearly destroying ourselves with nuclear weapons," Karen continued. "We did it without any help, without any guidance, without even knowing the galaxy was watching. That has to terrify them." Linda understood now. The invitation was not a gift. It was a cage. The Concorde had watched humanity grow from primitive creatures to space travelers in the blink of a galactic eye. They had seen how fast humans learned, how quickly they adapted, how stubbornly they refused to die, and they had decided that humanity needed to be controlled before it became a threat. "Tomorrow we find out what they really want," Linda said. "Whatever it is, we need to be ready. Humanity did not come this far to surrender its future to anyone." She looked out the window at the stars, each one a sun with planets that might hold wonders beyond imagination. Somewhere out there was everything humanity had ever dreamed of, and she would not let fear stop them from reaching it. The negotiation chamber was waiting. The negotiation chamber was designed to make visitors feel small. Linda understood this the moment she walked through the doors. The ceiling rose so high she could barely see it. The walls curved outward, covered in symbols from 100 different species. And at the far end, on a raised platform, sat representatives from the 12 most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The human delegation was given a small table near the floor. They had to look up to see anyone else. Around them, galleries filled with observers from dozens of other species watched with curiosity. This was the first time humanity had ever sat at this table, and everyone wanted to see what would happen. High Mediator Thrain opened the session. He was a Dravani, tall and powerful, with scales that shifted from blue to silver as he moved. His voice filled the chamber without any amplification. "The Galactic Concorde welcomes the human delegation. For 20 cycles, we have observed your species with interest. Your achievements are noted. Your persistence is acknowledged. Today, we offer you the opportunity to join our community as associate members." Linda stood, feeling very small, but keeping her voice steady. "The people of Earth thank the Concorde for this invitation. We come seeking partnership and friendship. We hope this is the beginning of a new era for our species," Deed Thrain said. "Let us discuss the terms of your membership." What followed was the longest day of Linda's life. The Concorde presented their offer piece by piece, and with each piece, her heart sank a little deeper. First came the good parts. Humanity would receive access to faster-than-light travel technology, something that would normally take them another century to develop on their own. They would be allowed to trade with Concorde species and travel freely through Concorde space. They would be protected by galactic law, which meant no one could attack them without facing consequences. Then came the conditions. A Kasani trade minister explained the first requirement. Her scales were green and gold, and her gills fluttered when she spoke. Article 7 of the membership agreement requires the complete demilitarization of your species. All human warships will be decommissioned. All weapons research will cease immediately. Concorde peacekeepers will be stationed in your territory to ensure compliance. Daniel leaned close to Linda. "They want us defenseless," he whispered. the Kasani continued. Article 12 establishes Concord oversight of human expansion. All new colonies must be approved by the Territorial Committee. Certain star systems are permanently restricted from human settlement. Linda looked at the star charts they projected onto the walls. The restricted zones included every valuable region within 50 light-years of Earth, all the resource-rich systems, all the habitable planets, all the strategic locations. Humanity would be allowed to colonize only the leftovers. Article 19 addresses your species population growth, the Kessani said. Given your concerning reproductive rate, the Concord will provide guidance on sustainable development. Population targets will be established and monitored. Linda felt cold anger building in her chest. You want to control how many children we have? We want to ensure stability, the Kasani replied smoothly. Your species grows too quickly. This creates imbalance. The Concord has experience managing such matters. Negotiations continued for 6 days. Each session revealed new restrictions, new limitations, new ways humanity would be controlled. They would be members of the Concord in name, but they would have no real power. They would be allowed to exist only as long as they stayed small, weak, and obedient. On the 7th day, Linda called a break and gathered her team in their quarters. They are not negotiating, Daniel said. They are dictating terms of surrender. Karen had spent the week analyzing the technology they were being offered. Everything they want to give us is civilian equipment, entertainment systems, medical devices, transportation, nothing military, nothing industrial, nothing that would help us build real power. They are giving us toys while keeping the real tools for themselves. Richard had been watching the alien representatives closely. The Velthari are afraid of us. You can see it in how they move, how they react when we speak. The Kasani are greedy. They want to exploit our labor and resources. But the Dravani are different. They seem almost impressed. Impressed by what? Linda asked. By our refusal to beg. Most species come here desperate for approval. We came here as equals, at least in our own minds. That surprises them. Linda walked to the window and looked out at the stars. 8 billion people on Earth were waiting to learn their future. Millions more lived on Mars, on Europa, on stations throughout the solar system. Thousands slept in generation ships. Drifting toward distant stars, they would not reach for centuries. All of them had worked and sacrificed and dreamed, so that humanity could stand among the stars. They had not done it to become servants. The Concord sees us as children, Linda said slowly. Dangerous children who need to be controlled. They think if they offer us enough shiny gifts, we will accept their chains. Will we? Daniel asked. Linda turned to face her team. Humanity crawled out of caves. We survived ice ages and plagues. We crossed oceans in wooden boats and split the atom and walked on the moon. We did all of that alone, without anyone's permission, without anyone's help. I did not come here to sell our future for technology. We would have invented ourselves eventually. I came here to find out if the galaxy was willing to treat us as equals. And if they are not? Karen asked. Linda's expression hardened. Then they will learn what humanity does when someone tries to put us in a cage. She sat down at the communication console and began composing a message to Earth. It was time for the leaders of humanity to make a choice. Accept the chains or walk away from the table. The response came 12 hours later. From every nation, every colony, every ship carrying human beings into the void. Walk away. Linda read the message and smiled. Tomorrow, she would show the galaxy what humanity was made of. The 12th session of negotiations began like all the others. High Mediator Thrain welcomed the delegations. Officials read procedural statements. The galleries filled with observers who expected to witness humanity's surrender. They were about to witness something very different. Ambassador. Linda Morrison stood from her seat. The chamber fell quiet. Everyone expected her to accept the terms, perhaps ask for a few small changes, and sign the agreement that would make humanity a servant species of the Concord. Instead, she spoke 3 words that would echo through galactic history. We decline membership." The silence that followed was absolute. In 5,000 years of Concord existence, no species had ever refused an invitation. The concept was simply impossible. Every civilization in the galaxy dreamed of joining the Concord. Every species understood that membership meant safety, prosperity, power, except humanity. Thrain's scales shifted through several colors, before settling on a dark purple that Linda did not recognize. "I do not understand," he said slowly. "You would reject the benefits we offer? The technology? The protection?" "We reject the chains you disguise as benefits," Linda replied. Her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "We reject your oversight of our military. We reject your control of our expansion. We reject your limits on our population. We reject everything about this agreement except the paper it is written on." The Kasani trade minister sputtered in outrage. "This is madness. You cannot survive alone in the galaxy. There are dangers you cannot imagine, threats you cannot face, powers that would destroy you without a second thought." "We have been alone our entire existence," Linda said. "Earth sits in a region you consider worthless, surrounded by stars you never bothered to claim. We built our civilization in the garbage you threw away, and we will continue building with or without your approval." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative she could see. Some looked angry. Some looked confused. A few, including Thrain, looked almost impressed. "Humanity offers friendship to any species willing to treat us as equals," she continued. "We offer fair trade, honest dealing, and mutual respect. But we will not be controlled. We will not be contained. We will not surrender our future because you are afraid of what we might become." She gestured to her delegation. They rose together, 12 humans standing against the judgment of 47 civilizations. "This negotiation is over." Linda turned and walked toward the exit. Her team followed, their footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. Thrain's voice stopped her at the door. "If you leave this chamber, you leave the protection of galactic law. Any species may act against you without consequence. You will be alone against the entire galaxy." Linda looked back at him. In that moment, she thought of everyone who had ever lived and died to bring humanity to this point. The scientists who had unlocked the secrets of the atom, the astronauts who had walked on distant worlds, the engineers who had built ships to carry humans to the stars, the soldiers who had fought and died in wars that should never have happened. None of them had asked permission to exist. None of them had begged for help. "Then anyone who moves against us should think very carefully before they do," she said. "We survived alone for thousands of years. We will continue surviving. The question you should ask yourself is whether you want us as friends or enemies." She walked out. The doors closed behind her. In the galleries, chaos erupted. Species that had coexisted peacefully for thousands of years suddenly faced something entirely new. A young civilization, barely past infancy by galactic standards, had looked at the most powerful alliance in existence and said no. The Velthari ambassador immediately contacted his government. The matriarchy needed to know that the human problem had just become much more complicated. The Kasani began calculating economic impacts. Humanity controlled several transit routes through their region of space. If they closed those routes, it would cost the Kasani economy trillions in losses. But it was the Dravani reaction that frightened the other species most. Thrain stood motionless for a long moment, his scales cycling through colors no translator could interpret. Then he made a sound that startled everyone nearby. He was laughing. Finally, he said to no one in particular, "A species with courage." The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within hours, every major civilization knew what had happened. The humans had walked away. The primitives, the newcomers, the young species that had only discovered fire 100,000 years ago, had rejected the greatest offer any species had ever received. Some called it arrogance. Some called it stupidity. A few, mostly among the warrior cultures, called it something else entirely. They called it strength. On the journey home, Ambassador Linda Morrison sat alone in her quarters and stared at the stars. She knew what she had done. She had made humanity an enemy of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. She had endangered billions of people. She had started a conflict that might end in extinction, but she had also done something else. She had shown the galaxy that humanity would not bend, would not break, would not surrender its freedom for any price. 2 messages arrived before the constellation reached Earth. The first was from the Velthari matriarchy, threatening economic sanctions and demanding an apology. Linda deleted it without responding. The second was from a Dravani military commander, requesting a secret meeting. Linda read it 3 times, then began composing a careful reply. The game was just beginning, when the constellation docked at Earth's orbital station. A crowd of thousands was waiting. News had traveled ahead of them. Everyone knew what had happened at the gathering hall. Everyone knew that humanity had chosen defiance over submission. Linda stepped off the ship to the sound of cheering. People waved flags from 100 nations, united for the first time in generations. Children held signs with words she could not read through her tears. President Matthew Sullivan met her at the bottom of the ramp. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "You did what no one else would have done," he said quietly. "I did what Earth told me to do," Linda replied. "The people made this choice, not me." Sullivan smiled. "Then let us show the galaxy what that choice means. We have work to do." And he was right. The real work was only beginning. 6 months after the walkout, the galaxy learned that humanity meant every word. The transformation was remarkable. Every shipyard in human space worked around the clock, producing vessels at a rate that made alien observers nervous. Military academies graduated officers by the thousands. Research facilities made breakthroughs in fields the Concord had considered impossible for young species. Humanity had spent 20 years being ignored. They had used that time well. Admiral Kevin Price stood on the bridge of the Defiance, the largest warship humanity had ever built. Through the viewports, he could see a fleet of 200 vessels, each one carrying weapons that had not existed a year ago. "The Concord thinks we are children playing with toys," he said to his officers. "They are about to learn otherwise." But humanity did not seek war. They sought allies. The consortium of minor species was a loose collection of civilizations too small to challenge the Concord. For centuries, they had suffered under unfair trade agreements and territorial restrictions. They had no power to resist because they had no one to stand beside them until now. Trade Representative Nina Martinez met their delegation in New Geneva. 20 species had sent ambassadors, creatures of every shape and size. Some walked on 2 legs. Others floated or crawled or moved in ways she could not describe. All of them had the same desperate hope in their eyes. "We are not looking for war," Nina explained. "We're looking for partners. Equal partners, bound by fair agreements and mutual respect." The Relari ambassador, a small furry creature with 6 limbs, leaned forward. "The Concord will not allow this. They will destroy you before you can threaten their power." Maybe, Nina admitted, "but they will have to destroy us first. And that will not be as easy as they think." She activated a display showing the human fleet. As the aliens watched in silence as ship after ship appeared on the screen. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, support vessels, 200 warships with more being built every day. "This is what 20 years of isolation produced," Nina said. "Imagine what we could build with allies." Within a year, humanity had signed treaties with 34 species. The new coalition called itself the Free Worlds Alliance. It was small compared to the Concord, but it was growing every month. The Concord responded with pressure. Trade sanctions cut off certain goods. Several human merchant ships were seized on fake legal charges. Diplomatic communications became threatening. Admiral Price proposed a response. The Kasani took 3 of our ships in the Novak system, he told the Joint Military Council. "Our people are being held as prisoners. I want them back." Linda, now serving as Secretary of State, studied the tactical displays. "What do you have in mind?" "Fast strike. We go in, disable their patrol fleet, recover our people and cargo, and leave before reinforcements arrive. No killing if we can avoid it. We just need to show them we can bite." The operation launched 3 weeks later. 12 Kasani warships guarded the Novak system, expecting no resistance. They were wrong. Human vessels appeared without warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel at close range. Before the Kessini could react, electromagnetic weapons disabled their ships. The technology was human-designed, built specifically to shut down enemy vessels without killing their crews. In 4 hours, it was over. Every Kessani ship drifted powerless. The human prisoners were recovered. The cargo was retrieved. The human fleet vanished before the Concorde could respond. The galaxy was shocked. The Concorde demanded military action. The Velthari wanted immediate retaliation. Kessini screamed for blood. Emergency sessions of the High Chamber debated what to do about the human problem, but the Dravani blocked every proposal. Commander Thrain, now promoted to the High Mediator's personal staff, presented his analysis to the chamber. His scales were calm, blue, showing no emotion. The humans fight differently than any species we have ever encountered, he said. They do not seek destruction. They seek to demonstrate capability. The Novak incident was a message. They can reach us anywhere, at any time, and we cannot stop them. Then we must crush them before they grow stronger, a Velthari official demanded. With what forces? The Concorde has not fought a serious war in 6,000 years. Our fleets are ceremonial. Our tactics are outdated. Our soldiers have never faced real combat. Thrain let that sink in before continuing. The humans have been fighting each other for their entire history. They have weapons we do not understand, and tactics we cannot predict. War is in their blood. You admire them, the Velthari accused. I recognize a superior warrior culture when I see one. Attacking them now would be suicide. Our only option is to find a way to live with them. The debate raged for months. Meanwhile, humanity continued building. The Free Worlds Alliance expanded to 50 species. Human technology was shared freely with allies, raising the coalition's power dramatically. On Earth, Dr. Richard Cole analyzed intercepted Concorde communications. What he found made him smile. They are fracturing, he reported to the Alliance Council. The minor powers resent the major ones. The major powers do not trust each other. The Velthari blamed the Kessini for economic problems. The Kessini blamed the Velthari for military weakness. The Dravani watch and wait. Linda nodded slowly. The only thing holding them together was the belief that they were unbeatable. We shattered that illusion. So what do we do now? Admiral Price asked. We keep building. We keep growing. We keep proving that we are not going anywhere. Linda looked around the room at faces from a dozen species. And we wait for them to make a mistake. They did not have to wait long. 3 months later, intelligence reports indicated that the Velthari were assembling a battle fleet. Their target was unclear, but the destination was not. They were coming for humanity's largest colony. Admiral Price began preparing his fleet. Every ship that could fight was called to service. Every pilot was put on alert. Every weapon was tested and ready. This time, there would be no surgical strike. This time, there would be battle, Linda sent. One final diplomatic message to the Concorde before the fleet launched. It was simple and direct. Humanity did not start this conflict, but we will finish it. This is your last chance to choose peace. After this, there will be no more chances. The Concorde did not respond. The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, racing toward the coming storm. The Velthari battle fleet arrived in the Epsilon Indi system on a Tuesday morning. 300 warships, the largest force they had assembled in 1,000 years, dropped out of faster-than-light travel and formed attack positions around humanity's biggest colony world. Admiral Lisa Crawford commanded the System Defense Force. She was a small woman with gray hair and steady hands. Her fleet was outnumbered 3-1. And she knew it. But she also knew something the Velthari did not. The Velthari. Commander broadcast his demands across all frequencies. Human forces, you are surrounded. Surrender immediately. Your colony will be placed under Concorde administration. Resistance is useless, Lisa replied with 4 words that would become legendary. Come and take it, the Velthari attacked with confidence. Their ships were larger and, in theory, more powerful. Their commanders had studied war for centuries. They expected the humans to fight bravely and lose quickly. They were wrong about everything. The first wave of Valkyrie cruisers ran into a minefield that should not have existed. The mines were not traditional explosives. They were kinetic impactors, simple chunks of metal moving at incredible speeds. They punched through shields like paper and tore hulls apart like tissue. 6 cruisers died in the first 30 seconds. The second wave encountered human destroyers that refused to fight conventionally. Instead of forming battle lines, they scattered in every direction. They attacked from above and below, from left and right, from angles the Valkyrie had never considered. They fired their weapons and vanished before return. Fire could track them. The third wave never launched. Admiral Crawford led her heavy ships in a direct assault on the Valkyrie. Flagship, it was a massive vessel, bristling with weapons, carrying the best officers the Valkyrie had, and it died in 12 minutes. Human ships targeted specific systems with surgical precision. First, they destroyed the flagship's communications array, then its sensor network, and its shield generators. One by one, they stripped away everything that made the ship dangerous. When the flagship went dark, the rest of the Valkyrie fleet fell into chaos. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Valkyrie had lost 40% of their force. 120 ships drifted dead in space. Thousands of Valkyrie sailors were dead or captured. Human casualties were less than 5%. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy like fire. The Valkyrie, one of the oldest and most respected species in existence, had been crushed by primitives, a civilization that had discovered electricity. Only 2 centuries ago had defeated a species that had ruled the stars for 5,000 years. The Concord fell into chaos. Emergency sessions produced only blame. The Cassani accused the Valkyrie of arrogance. The Valkyrie accused the Cassani of providing bad intelligence. The smaller species whispered in corners about changing sides. And the Dravani said nothing, which frightened everyone more than any speech could have. 3 weeks after the battle, Commander Thrain arrived at Earth's orbital embassy. He came alone, without guards or staff. He came as a messenger, not a diplomat. Ambassador Linda Morrison received him in the same room where she had first learned of the Concorde's invitation. 2 years ago? It felt like a lifetime. You understand what you were asking, she said. Full recognition of humanity as a sovereign power, acknowledgement of the free world's alliance, complete diplomatic relations between equals. I understand, Thrain replied. His scales were steady blue, calm and controlled. I also understand that the alternative is a war the Concorde cannot win. Your species has proven that beyond any doubt. Why you? Why send a Dravani to beg for peace? Thrain made a sound that might have been a laugh. Because we respect strength? The Valkyrie and Cassini still see you as a threat to be eliminated. We see you as potential allies. And what do the Dravani want in return? Change. Thrain leaned forward. The Concorde has been dying for millennia. We grew too comfortable, too certain of our power, too blind to our weaknesses. Your arrival has disrupted everything. And disruption creates opportunity. Linda studied him carefully. Opportunity for what? For something new? A galaxy where strength is respected regardless of age, where young species can rise based on merit instead of waiting for permission? The old powers will resist, but they cannot stop what is coming. His scales shifted to a color she had not seen before. Humanity is the future. The Dravani want to be part of that future. The negotiations lasted 3 months. Every detail was debated. Every word was analyzed. Every possible trick was anticipated and blocked. The final treaty recognized humanity and the free worlds. Alliance as equal partners in galactic civilization. Trade routes were opened. Travel restrictions were lifted. The Concorde's policy of containment was officially and permanently abandoned. At the signing ceremony, held in the same chamber where Linda had walked away 2 years earlier, representatives from 100 species watched as history changed forever. Linda stood before them and spoke. We came to you in peace, and you offered us chains. We walked away, and you called us enemies. We defended ourselves, and now you call us equals. She paused, letting the words fill the chamber. Humanity does not seek dominion over anyone. We seek only the freedom to grow, to explore, to reach our potential. Stand with us, and we will be the greatest friends you have ever known. Stand against us, and you will learn why we have survived everything the universe has thrown at us." She signed the treaty with a pen that had belonged to her grandmother. A woman who had never dreamed her grandchild would stand among the stars. 50 years later, humanity had spread across 100 star systems. The Free Worlds Alliance had grown into a major galactic power. Old enemies had become trading partners. Former rivals had become friends. On Earth, in a museum dedicated to the First Contact era, children gathered around a display showing the moment Linda Morrison walked out of the negotiation chamber. A guide explained what it meant. The galaxy expected us to accept their terms. They thought we would be grateful for scraps. They did not understand what humanity was made of. A young boy raised his hand. Were we scared? Being alone against everybody? The guide smiled. Of course we were scared, but fear never stopped us before. We faced ice ages. We survived plagues. We fought wars that nearly destroyed us. We split atoms and built thinking machines and crossed the void between stars. Fear is just another obstacle to overcome. Outside the museum, ships rose and fell from the spaceport, carrying humans and aliens alike to destinations across the galaxy. In orbit, the constellation, preserved as a monument, still carried the scars of those first dangerous years, and far beyond. On worlds that had never heard of Earth until a few decades ago, beings of every shape and size looked up at the stars and wondered what humanity would do. Next, they never stopped wondering the galaxy had. Watched in fear as humanity walked away from the negotiation table. Now, they watched in admiration as humanity walked among the stars.